Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
At this point, I just want to avoid whatever Rand put in that cup for Fedwin Morr.
Yeah.
Trying to bring it back to the chapter here.
Yeah, let's swing it around to the penultimate Watt Spoilers recording for Path of Daggers, because we will be combining the final two chapters into one episode, since the last chapter is really more of just an epilogue paragraph.
Yeah, just a page. Yeah.
So this is the penultimate Watt Spoilers episode for Path of Daggers, and it is a banger, quite literally. Things go very much bang.
Can I admit that the first time I read this, I wasn't reading close enough and skipped over the important damage that happened here? Like, I don't know how, but it wasn't until I reread this book that I realized what had happened.
The palace being damaged?
The palace being destroyed and the attack, because I was like, wait, why is he mad at the Asha'man? Like, I totally missed that on my first read.
You know, that's not weird, because I think that happened to me too. I feel like it goes by so quickly. You go from Rand and Min talking to Rand running through the corridors. It does feel like you skip over what that transition was. It happens very, very quickly, which
it does.
Kind of feels like the RJ thing, right? Fog of war, like the actual traumatic event flashes by faster than you can process it. And then you're dealing with the aftermath and you've completely moved on from the actual inciting incident.
And in a lot of ways, that is what this book is themed, right? The fog of war,
exactly.
Right? That is the theme of this book. And so in a lot of ways, like not really knowing what's going on, like when Rand's confused because he's suffering from the channeling sickness. Well, Jordan wrote the fog of war into this book. It's why it's a little confusing.
Yeah, this is the lightning strike of war. This is the part where it goes crack, boom, and you are completely disoriented and don't know what's happening, and you're just on to the next thing. And yet in behind you, you can see that there is a problem.
What have I heard war described as is a lot of boredom punctuated with absolute moments of terror. Moments of absolute terror.
I feel like I have heard something to that effect before. Yeah. And this chapter really follows that kind of pacing.
It does. But yeah, chapter 29, A Cup of Sleep, and our symbol is the dragon banner.
Don't be an utter woolhead, Rand, Min said. Making herself remain seated, she crossed her legs and kicked her foot idly, but she could not keep exasperation out of her voice. Go to her! Speak to her! Why? He snapped. I know which letter to believe now. It's better this way. She's safe now. From anyone who wants to strike at me. Safe from me. It's better. But he stalked up and down in his shirt sleeves between the two rows of chairs in front of the dragon throne, his fists white-knuckle hard, glaring to beat the black clouds beyond the casements that were laying a new blanket of snow on Cairhien. So I can't not read him as pouty. Like,
he's being very pouty.
It's super pouty.
And we get that reference to the two letters that Elayne sent. And, I had a moment where I was like, Rand really isn't necessarily... Everyone's like, oh, how can he be with three women at once? I'm like, well, he doesn't think he's with Elayne anymore, right? He thinks she's pretty much broken up with him. He's definitely not with Aviendha at this point, right? He's really, and he hasn't even really started with Min.
No, I'd say that they're a thing now.
They're a thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but he's really just with Min at this stage in his life.
I would agree with that. He doesn't consider himself as being with all three until the bonding, because he thinks that admitting his love for all three in front of them will shatter those three individual relationships, and instead it turns into one four-way ecosystem. And after that, he's with three. But we are not there yet. That's a good point. He's not with three women for a good portion of the books, actually.
No, and he really is he's with Elayne. He's like making out with Elayne and loves her. And then she writes in those two letters, and he's like, well, I don't fucking know. I guess we're not together anymore. And then he sort of has this whole relationship develop with Aviendha until the igloo. But then she pieces out pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, that's a one and done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more of a one-night stand than a relationship.
Exactly. I would, she says, this will not happen again. He considers that case closed because he's a respectful person. he should consider himself single and only with Min at the respective points in the timeline. Like, yeah, not until the bonding can he be responsible for the fact that there are 3 relationships developing.
And emotionally, he's still in love with all 3 of them. But, you can be in that place where you love 2 people, but one of them you can't be with, so you're with the other one.
Yeah, that's absolutely a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's valid. That is not a 2-way relationship. That is an unrequited feeling. It's different.
And the other thing I really wanted to bring up in this beginning is this news came from Taim, who came from Caemlyn, right? So the news that his banners have been torn down were delivered by Taim earlier in the day, first thing in the morning. Taim went to Caemlyn, and we see that scene in the prologue of Winter's Heart, the next book. So that's an out-of-order scene where we actually see Taim's visit to Caemlyn and Elayne, and that's when his meeting gets interrupted by the first sister ceremony and everything that's going on there, where they get bonded together, and that has actually already happened.
So Elayne and Aviendha are first sisters as of this point in time.
As of like right now, yeah.
They are probably waking up from the aftermath of the ceremony at this point.
Yes.
Because
yes.
Taim could, in theory, have left from that interruption and gone straight to Rand, because he has gateways, or he could have taken like as much as 48 hours to bring him that message. Seems like he wouldn't have waited any longer than that.
Yeah, it seems like he visited them one day and then early the next morning went to Rand.
Yeah.
That would be my assumption, because he visited Rand early in the morning.
That makes sense. He sees Elayne in the mid-morning. He sees Rand in the mid-morning. So one day and then the next. Or he literally leaped from one palace to the other by gateway. But that doesn't seem like Taim. He's not going to be running to be a messenger boy for Rand. He's going to go home and think about it and make his dark friend plans and see Rand next day. So yeah, Elayne and Aviendha are newly minted first sisters as of right now. That's cool. That's nice to know. We'll be seeing that next book, but...
Oh, and I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who showed up for the @everyone
Whoa!
prompt. Yeah.
Wow.
We got a big crowd today. Thank you very much.
I guess I'll use the @everyone more often. I fell out of the habit because I use the event feature on Discord now. But this is a lot of people. Hi, everyone.
So just want to shout out, if you want to get notified about these things, go up to the top with the event feature and sign up for the events notifications. Because we definitely use those every time. Because, we just didn't want to pester people with the @everyone's, so.
Yeah, it seemed like a neater way to manage this for everyone. But, yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is fun.
The next bit I wanted to talk about is how the Maidens are really kind of being a bit sulky and not being the gatekeepers and the watchers for Rand that they used to be.
Yes.
Right? Because remember, they just beat him bloody for abandoning them. And we get a little bit about his internal, his reasoning, where he's like, oh, well, I didn't want them to know I left, which is why I wanted the Maidens to stay here. But we know that's all bullshit. He just didn't want to put them in danger.
Yeah.
But so they're letting anyone who's not an obvious threat just walk on in. They are no longer his gatekeepers. And that's why he has Fedwin Morr there to sort of be his gatekeeper.
Yes.
For who gets access to him and who doesn't.
The Aiel are, at this point, only doing baseline security. They're not doing any of the frills, none of the bells or whistles, none of the courtesy features. They're like, you want to act like a sulky bitch? We will protect your literal life and nothing else. And that's pretty sucky. Their relationship is kind of rocky right now. Rand against the Maidens. They're having a tough time. But yeah, he has Morr there to be the courtesy filter. And it's working. It's fine.
Well, and these poor Maidens, they don't last the chapter.
Yeah, these Maidens are in the last 30 minutes or so of their lives at this point.
So Min gives him the sort of like, hey, stop sulking, right? Like, tearing down your banners isn't an insult to you. It's the politically expedient thing to do. And the fact that you are upset about that is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, she lays it out in the facts. Like, first of all, the throne was never yours to give. Second of all, this is exactly what Elayne needs to do politically to be safe in the ways that you're worried about. Third of all, you're literally being ridiculous. Like, she is reading the situation correctly, the way that we are. Like, we are all saying from our podcast several episodes back, we have built up to exactly the argument that Min makes.
Mm-hmm. Well, Min's very astute in this situation, right? Like,
she is so smart.
And she's reading the other woman correctly as well. Like, she knows Elayne's still in love with Rand. And she doesn't... I don't know if she knows about the letters. I guess she must. But...
I don't know if she does, but she doesn't matter. She's like, this is Elayne the queen doing what she needs to do against Rand the dragon. This has nothing to do with Elayne the woman and Rand the man. Like, obviously, this has nothing to do with that. Why are you taking this personally? Just go talk to her. You'll see that this is a queen on dragon thing, not a man on woman thing. Like,
And then, one of my favorite, there's a great line here that's very typical of Jordan. And don't tell me again to stop shouting. I'm not, he roared. It's like,
yes.
And then he stops because he realized, yes, you are shouting, Rand.
That is a Two Rivers thing now. We know that because it's not just a Nynaeve thing, it's a Two Rivers thing. Mm-hmm. Chat saying that maybe Elayne did tell her about the letters in Saladar. Honestly, I could see that. Given the relationship that develops off screen between the two of them in Saladar.
And Rand's constantly pulling them out and reading them. I wouldn't be surprised if she saw them, and maybe he may have even showed them to her and been like, "What do you think about this?"
Because she's just a friend, right? Because she's
just a friend,
friend-zoning her. Yeah. So yeah, she knows, and she's just like, "Oh my God, Rand." Yeah, but she's reading the situation correctly. I also want to point out that she's thinking about boxing his ears, and if any of you happen to want to hear some really scandalous stuff, you should go check out episode 52 of Tar Valon After Dark. There is some commentary about ear boxing that happens on that show with some really intense, scandalous secret recordings. And I think you should all go check it out.
But the long and the short of it is earboxing is actually kind of a dangerous practice, right? Like, yes. You can really damage somebody's hearing if you smack both of their ears at the same time with your hands. It actually creates a spike in air pressure that can rupture your eardrums. It's not like a casual, like, pop on the back of the head or like a little, punch in the arm. It's actually like dangerous, like, and not good for you. So
it's up there with using cast iron to knock someone out for a few minutes. Do not do this in real life. You could kill someone.
So yeah, Nynaeve's a little violent. That's all we're saying. Yeah.
So Min is being violent here is the point. She's just being very like annoying RJ characterization. She's folding her arms beneath her breast. She's threatening to box ears. She's scolding. It's not RJ's best depiction of a woman, but I think that's just the writing. Min's still great. It's just this is an antagonistic chapter, and so she's pretty shrewish. And she also mentions that you're not even sure if Matt's alive. And Rand's like, "Nuh-uh, I'm a Verin. I can totally tell if Matt's alive." I mean, I'm paraphrasing.
Well, and we've seen the precursor to the swirls of color. Right? We've noticed once or twice that has happened. So there is a connection between them. There is a Verin pulling that they talk about feeling like there is this sort of idea that like he would know if Matt's dead. But I also think that that's a little like wink and a nod to the audience because Matt wasn't in this book. So you haven't mentioned Matt twice. This is literally the second time I think in the book Matt's actually been mentioned. So it might be the second time his name has come up because he's not in this book. So I think that's Jordan being like, yeah, I know I didn't bring him in the book. It's okay. He'll be back. He's not dead, I promise. Even though I dropped the wall on him.
He's fine. He's fine.
He's fine. Yeah.
Totally.
Because that is like, I remember when this book came out, that was one of the things I wanted to know is what happened to Matt. And then I get to this, like the penultimate chapter, and I'm like, where the fuck has Matt been? Like, I've been waiting for him to pop back up because this is where his story was getting really interesting and really, fun with all the side characters that you generally think of as Matt hanging out with. And you're like, what? Where are they? Where is he? Like, well, he hasn't been mentioned twice.
Yeah.
The next thing I have is the 5 Verin-compelled women walking in.
I changed highlighter colors for this section. It felt like such a separate, massive thing. I have one more thing about Min. Aside from the fact that she's being violent as hell, there's like 4 different references of violence She's not going to slap him. He's too big for her to spank. And she considers quicking a square in the bottom. Also, she says this line about Elayne, which I'm just going to headcanon doesn't exist. We're not even going to talk about it. I'm just bail firing it out of the canon. It's not there because it ruins all of my headcanon about the polyamorous relationships that are obviously happening. And this line...
What's the line?
The line is, Light, she loved Elayne almost as much as she did Brand. Maybe as much in a very different way. It's like... This is RJ being like, no, she's super straight. She's super, super straight. Sisters, it's a sister bond. It's a sister thing. And I'm just like, no. I'm just going to pretend that's not happening. I don't like that clarification.
See, I always headcanon Avienda and Elayne getting together because they're sleeping in the same bed and doing a lot of that. Yeah. But like, Min to me seems to be not interested in joining that. She's very much into Rand and into boys. That's always been my headcanon.
And this line supports that, and I don't like it.
Fair.
So in my version of this book, this line has been whited out.
That's fine. You can headcanon that all you want.
Just putting it out there for everyone who is annoyed at this line. I'm with you. I hear you. I see you. And I'm creating a alternate universe where we can all enjoy the bisexuality together.
I just don't think all three of them need to be bisexual.
No, but I don't like that Jordan's like, no, Min's super straight. She's like the best girl. Like, look at how she's a tomboy. She's not like the other girls, but she's still straight.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't like it. You didn't need to say that. You could have just shown us that at some point in the 5 years down the line Outrigger book where the relationships have settled out. You don't have to tell us in a, parenthetical, basically. I also see Min as being extremely non-binary, even though Jordan wrote her with, definitely she's a woman, definitely. Like, that's not my headcanon of her because it's my wheel of time. I get to do what I want. I agree with that map that is Min goes to Rand, who goes to Elayne and Avienda, who also go to each other. That is, I think, what the book canon supports the most. I spend too much time with fanfic writers, I think.
Listen, in fan fiction, everybody's gay.
And all ships are sailing. It's all of them.
It's
fuck the rules.
It's just the Sean Chan invasion of Randland. The ships are coming.
So that's... I just wanted to put that little humorous bit out there before we get into the very, very serious thing to do with, these 5 women, these 5 Aes Sedai. This is a big, important piece that factors into a lot of how the next couple of books arc with Rand go.
But I think one of the things the name that never comes up in this chapter that we have to talk about is Verin. Right? The reason that these 5 women are walking in here with each in their own fashion, each comes up with these very different explanations of why they're swearing fealty to Rand, is because they have been compelled by Verin, right? We saw that scene where she was visiting them in the tents and creating the complicated weaves and pulling them apart and having them collapse down into their heads. And she said, she can't compel them to do something they will never do. They have to find their own reasons. And what we're seeing is the reasons that they have found to justify following Verin's compulsion. And why Min has the vision that they're each going to serve her in their own way. Because they've been compelled to do so.
Verin! MVP.
And I think that's incredibly important for Elsa, who's the Dark Friend.
Yes. Whose reaction surprises everyone, even Sora Leah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's when you're on your rereads, it's Verin is writ large across the page without ever being mentioned in the slightest.
And that was in the prologue of this book, right? So this is sort of, it started, that whole plot line is going from the beginning of this book to the end of this book. It's a sort of self-contained plot line within the Path of Daggers.
So that way, even on your first read, you might suspect something because it was in the beginning of this book.
Yes.
You might be like, that sure seems like what Verin was doing, and you're not sure yet, but it's self-contained enough that you should theoretically pick it up. Do you think Verin knew that Elsa was black?
Good question, Keith. Yes, because Verin knows. That's always the safe way, but that's a tough one. That could be a hole. Again, I don't think she cares because she's doing compulsion, and it doesn't matter to her whether she's black or not. I
think it's interesting. Would she do things differently if she knew? Would doing the compulsion have revealed to her that Elsa was a dark friend?
No.
Okay.
Although it does put them in a trusting, they had to be in a trusting mood. She did have to they did tell her some of the secrets. She does get information out of them because it's isn't it while she's casting it, it's basically a truth spell on them for a little while, truth serum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like acid or something. It puts you in a little bit of altered space and you'll tell the truth. That's kind of, I don't know. I always feel like it's CIA interrogation drugs gone right. Mm-hmm. It's kind of what Verin's thing is.
And the odds are she knew, like Travis is saying here, Verin compiled an entire book of blacks. She missed, maybe 50 out of 300. Chances are she got her, right?
Yeah, Elsa could have been one of the ones that she missed. There's absolutely that possibility.
Could have been.
There's also the question that Keith is raising is, would Verin maybe have killed Katarine instead of compelling her if Katarine hadn't escaped? Because Verin definitely would have known that Katarine was Black Aja. That, without a doubt, she would have known. Elsa, I don't know, but Katarine, definitely. Elsa is a fairly new Aes Sedai, I think. So maybe that makes it more likely that Verin would have missed her because she just hasn't been making Black Aja ripples for as long.
Hard to know because we don't ever get... Egwene never really interacts with Elsa. She never has the opportunity to reveal Elsa because she's not in either the White Tower or the Rebels. So that's really the only ones that we know about are in the book.
We don't get a complete list from Verin. We don't get a complete list of the sisters who escaped. I think Egwene thinks of a couple of the names that slipped away, but for the most part, she just says a few. So there's no real way to correlate that. So I guess that's your headcanon may vary, but the official stance of this podcast is that Verin knows. So I think that gives us our answer, just from a theological perspective.
But so, shall we go over the five?
Yes.
Elsa Penfell, which we've talked about in detail. Nessun, who is a Brown, and she will later go on to found a library.
Because she's a Brown! She basically does a Verin. She says, this situation sucks. I'm going to make the best of it by learning as much as I can. She's, I think, maybe the most sincere of all of them because she's like, no, I'm going to study you. And that's maybe the passion that turns into her founding a library. Maybe Verin helps one of her fellow Browns do the most Brown thing ever because of the influence of her compulsion.
Then you have Serene, who is... Again, another S name, sorry.
Serene Nemdal.
Nemdal. And she is the classic white. Logical and beautiful, ignorant of it. She's so gorgeous. She's like the Ice Queen, right?
Yeah.
This gorgeous woman who doesn't realize it and only follows logic and doesn't have any emotion. But of course, in typical whites, it's that she has an emotion but denies it.
Yeah, she's 7 of 9. Yeah.
Nice.
And she's going to have a tempestuous love affair.
Yeah. That's why she's got the emotion but ignores it, right? And that's why it's tempestuous.
Yeah, for sure. The long denied emotions will come out, much like with 7.
I like the 7 of 9 comparison because I feel like it is a trope, right? This beautiful, logical, but ignorant of her own beauty person.
Yeah, I've been indulging myself in a re-listen of The Clan of the Cave Bear, and that is Ayla's entire personality, is that she's gorgeous and intelligent and has no idea that she is either.
Yeah, well, because she was raised among a culture where tall and blonde and big...
And having a forehead and a chin.
And having a forehead and a chin was
and
considered...
straight limbs.
Right. Now, we know now that caricature of Neanderthals was based on a single deformed fossil.
Yeah. It's super, super dated. There's so much wrong with it on so many levels. But that is a huge part of the character arc, is that she was raised with the wrong beauty standards and thus has no idea that she's like the most beautiful person that any one of her people has ever met. And it's a whole thing. So it's a trope, but it's a fun trope.
Yeah.
because it allows a woman to be not weaponizing her beauty. It allows a woman to be everything but beautiful in terms of how she interacts with people.
I also feel like it allows a guy who's not necessarily worthy of her to get the pretty girl, though, which is not necessarily a positive aspect of that.
It can go a lot of ways. How do you handle the question of beauty and attraction can be real problematic if not steered carefully. Yeah. But that is apparently Serene Nemdal's kind of character arc is being that character.
So there's 3 greens in this group. Beldine is Saldean. She doesn't have the ageless look yet, so she's a brand new Aes Sedai. And she ends up bonding Carlden Manfor as her warder.
Oh.
Who is so she ends up bonding an Ashaman.
Yeah, lots of Ashaman bondies in this group because of the timing of when they join Rand's party. And then Arian Boreleos, who's like the one that he killed warders of and beat him multiple times. He's got a particular history with her out of these 5.
Mm-hmm. She's the one who really, I think, isn't she the one who got talked into beating him on a regular basis? That like, wasn't she like, she beat him once and that was going to be enough, but then she got like talked into doing it.
Yeah. Galena wanted to sleep with her and was trying to convince her to like get really emotional and ragey and beat Rand and then like collapse into a horny mess in Galena's arms, and it didn't work, and she got mad and decided Rand should be beaten all the time.
And didn't she take that out on somebody else?
On Rand.
No, Galena. I thought she took it out on one of the other...
Yeah, Galena took her romantic rejection out on Rand. That was what we decided. I was doing our mid-rolls, and I put one of our ad breaks near... I ended up listening through that section, and we had this whole like soap opera drama constructed for that situation. Because yes, Galena does canonically encourage her, and we made a lot out of that. And Chat is also reminding us, thank you, Keith, that Carlden is Loyal's chauffeur when Loyal is going around to do the gateway or the waygate closing thing.
Okay.
Carlden is the Ashaman that makes that possible.
So he's the gateway. He's gatewaying Loyal between the different waygates.
Yeah. So he's probably fine because he's spending time with the absolute best character of the whole series and can be no amount of taint or corruption or dark friendery is going to touch him because he is within the protective auric shield of Loyal's goodness.
Pop quiz, where's Loyal right now?
I don't know. He's not with Carlden. That comes, I think, when Rand is organizing his shit after he escapes this, which he's not with Perrin. He's traveling?
So Keith is saying that this is actually Carlden is off with Loyal right now, closing these down.
Oh, that happened already?
And that's why we're not seeing him. Yep, that happened already.
Oh. Okay, so Carlden is not yet bonded to Beldine, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's not bonded to Beldine yet. That will be happening after Beldine becomes sworn to Rand and Carlden returns with Loyal. Okay, good. Man, the answer was right in front of me to that pop quiz. God damn it. It's just like college.
It's always the answer you don't.
Always. And Travis in chat is reminding us that when Dobrain almost gets assassinated, that's when Carlden shows up with Loyal. That's in like Winter's Heart. Closer to the cleansing. They show up back at the palace right as Dobrain gets attacked.
I barely remember that.
Yeah, it's a ways out. And is that it? Yeah, that's it.
And Sorelia is also included in Min's viewing of the woman who will serve you in her way, even though she doesn't necessarily have the compulsion on her. But that's just because she actually wants to help him.
Yes.
And like she makes that deal with Godswain to help him find tears and love again.
Which is very much in her own way. That is very much in her own way.
That's a personality, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically the Wise Ones have decided that the 5 Aes Sedai have gone as far as it's reasonable to let them go with trying to repay unrepayable tow without bringing Rand into the loop. Like, they've been named Song, they've been shamed to their bones, they've asked to be beaten, And the wise ones think that it's time to give Rand a little bit of a stake in what's happening at this point. And Min is like, what the fuck are you smoking? And can I flush it all down the toilet? Min is not pleased with this decision, but Soraleah is Soraleah, and Min can't stop it.
And so these women give their reasons, and we can go through them. I mean, they kind of boil down to, you're the Dragon Reborn and you have to serve in the last battle, and we should help you get there. But Rand is not going to accept them.
No.
Right. He is absolutely not willing to accept their reasons until Min's vision.
Yeah, he can see that they've all talked themselves into it, but he thinks that that's just intellectual, and an Aes Sedai's bond is as good as her belief, and there's no real reason to trust it. He's hoping that Min is going to be able to give him something, and if she can't, this is not enough.
And the White, of course, says, it's logical that I must serve you. That's about all I got out of her whole explanation.
Mm-hmm. The Brown, I want to study you. It's like a case study in who the Ajas are.
Yeah, it really is. The Greens are both like, well, we have to be with you when you fight at Tyrum and Gaiden. You have to go, and I want to fight, so I'm going to serve you.
Which is legit. That's exactly what Greens are for. Yeah.
And then the Black, you are the Dragon Reborn. You must be there for the last battle. I must help you be there. Not I must help you win, not I must help you fight, but you have to be there so the Dark One can kick your ass.
Yep.
She doesn't mention the Dark One in that, but that's basically what she's thinking is, well, the Dark One needs to fight you in the last battle, and so you must survive till the last battle, and I'll do whatever I can to help that happen.
Yep, absolutely.
And she is also the one who's going to help him die. Is that correct? Or do I?
Nope, that's Olivia.
Olivia. I always confuse those two.
Elsa is the one who dies with the Semirog breakout attempt.
Got it. Right.
She gets compelled into being an automaton basically for Semirog for like 3 minutes before she gets bale-fired out of existence.
Right. Because she's like standing behind Semirog when he takes out.
Yeah, exactly.
She gets like true power bale-fired.
Yes, and just because she's collateral damage, not because she needed to be taken out that hard, just because she was in the cone of influence for Semirog getting attacked. And so Rand, before he completely denies them, first puts the question to them, would you accept being confined in a box all day and being beaten when you come in and out? Because they've been being beaten morning and night, but they haven't been confined in a box throughout the day. And he's saying, well, would you accept that? And they say, yeah, that's kind of the hole that we're in at this point. We got to say yes. And Min is like, that will be very bad for you at a soul level, and I need to make it stop somehow, and forces her talent to give her an aura. That means they will serve you each in her fashion. The wording comes with the aura. It's a very specific wording, and that allows it to be flexibly applied to both compelled women and dark friends and sincere women.
And this is where occasionally Min tells prophecies rather than has visions. That's when those words, the words really do come with, when she knows what they are, that is a prophecy, a verbal, written prophecy. Oh, and Keith is pointing out that Elsa has her compulsion removed by Shadar Haran, so at that point she doesn't have to serve him in her way. She doesn't have to follow that.
Oh, that's why she gets all dumb. Yeah. Because Shadar Haran removes Verin's compulsion, and that gives her brain damage. It's not that Semirog does it.
And compelled by Semirog, and, I'm not sure exactly. I'd have to go back and look at exactly what her brain is at that point, but she's pretty brain fried. She's
jello. She's not coming back. She's been broken beyond repair by the time that she gets bale-fired. Yeah.
The one thing I really wanted to talk about with Min's viewing is that she really seems to manifest this viewing, right? She's not seeing this, they will serve him in their own way, and she's like seeing that he's going to reject it, and she is like, I have to stop this somehow. And she's like, almost, I don't know if this is Verin twisting, if this is the pattern, or if somehow Min is able to influence. She always says she can't, but, maybe when she really needs to, she does have a viewing.
I mean, I think that there's an element of Verin twisting to it in the sense that she has the ability to influence Rand, and she can see that Rand is about to go into a very, very dark place, and she's the only spot in the pattern where anything could change, right? And so the pattern works through her because Rand needs to not do that to himself, or she's actually able to control it. And if she had a mentor who didn't teach her how to fear it, maybe she would actually be able to control it. Maybe that's why Doomseers and Seanchan are a thing. Maybe there used to be an actual sense of you can use this power, interact with it to some degree, understand what it means, instead of her just repressing it and saying, I don't know how it works. Clearly it doesn't work with logic at all. And it's like, no, it has rules. It has rules. What if she explored them? So I like the idea that maybe she made this happen out of desperation. That's how you do it with channeling when you don't know how to channel, right? It's desperation that forces you to figure it out.
Yeah. There's a little bit of that soft magic aspect to, need, right? Need is a big deal in the Wheel of Time as well, right? In the dreams and maybe here, she has this need to have a vision, more so than a want.
Yeah, and prophecies and the dream world, I think, are more connected than not, so need would be a very salient aspect.
Yeah, especially Min's visions, right? Like, basically, Min's visions and the images she sees are very much connected to the things that Perrin sees when he's in the wolf dream, or Egwene sees when she, those sort of images and visions that pop through the horizon and break through, right? Those are very similar in Perrin's dreams as they are to Min's images around somebody.
Yeah.
And any idea about the colors, blue and yellow tinged with green? I couldn't see any reason why it would be that. Yeah.
No, that's just cool colors for funsies. I mean, she even says that sometimes the colors mean things and sometimes they don't. So, whatever. And so Rand is diffused. That is all he needed. He needed to hear Min say, this is good. You're greenlit by ephemeral, mysterious forces. And he's cool. And he demands a very reasonable thing, which is to swear the same oath that other Aes Sedai have sworn and to simply join in that category.
Kneel or you will be knelt. I mean, that's really...
Kneel or I'm kicking you the fuck out is more like it in this case.
But to me, that at the end of Lord of Chaos, the world changed when the first Aes Sedai knelt and swore to Rand. We knew at that point they would not be the last.
Right.
And here's another group, who
is also not going to be the last. We have both internal and external thoughts from the characters saying this is not going to be the end of it, is it? And nope, we're going to have double handful more, I think.
I love Min's line here. She wants a book to throw at Rand. Well, maybe not one of Master Spell's books. He wants to read that and throw a different book.
She's like, I want a book of Master Spells to throw at Rand. No, not to throw at Rand. I need someone else's book to throw at Rand.
Yeah.
Priorities.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't. And I almost am like, I wish she'd said, maybe not a book.
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah. Either that or it's just that's how highly she esteems Fel's books, that all other books are throwing books.
There is that level of respect for Master Fel and the reading, but also shows you how much reading she's been doing of him, right? How much she's been doing that learning, that reading, that educating, and how much she becomes, the substitute for the information that Rand needed from Master Fel.
Mm-hmm. And you get to know someone when you saturate in their work. Like, you see themes across multiple books, across multiple years of their writing. Like, you get to know someone. It's like listening to someone's podcast a whole bunch.
For maybe about 5 years or so?
Yeah, it's akin to that. It's akin to that. For sure, even though books are a little bit less candid than podcasts. But yeah, she's binging Master Fel's back catalog.
Right. And, but also there's that response. So she's got that bookmark from him that's too pretty, don't bring her. So there's that nostalgia and going on there.
But yeah, so the second that the Wise One leaves and takes the Aes Sedai away, all of that plot resolves itself and Rand goes right back into pouting about Elayne. And Min goes right back into trying to manage his unreasonableness. And then, so they're about to go back into sulking. They're about to go back into what they were doing. And then Leah, by some twist of the light, by some manipulative, fiendish Leah reason, decides to just drop this little grain of sand to get into Rand's psyche. It says, I think Cadsuane thinks you're afraid of her. Anyway, bye. See ya. And if she hadn't said that, they would all still be in the room and have died.
Yep.
And I don't think that that's necessarily to Verin. I think that that's Leah not being able to leave well enough alone. But
I totally think that's to Verin.
It's real perfect.
Cerelia and Cadsuane, have they had their heart-to-heart and united? Has that happened yet? Keith says yes.
I don't remember because time is a puddle.
Right. So, but...
Okay,
yeah,
Super Skylight says also, and
saying,
so this is part of the plan. This is them actively manipulating him into approaching Cadsuane.
So this is actually Cadsuane manipulating him through Cerelia to get him out of the room. So
again, I'm not sure that this is to Verin. I think this might just be Cerelia not being able to leave well enough alone and enacting the plan and saying, here's my opportunity to drop that little breadcrumb.
Maybe, but I think the timing is to Verin.
Yeah, fair. But I don't think it's like she never would have said it. Like, she was going to say that. Absolutely. But you're right. The timing is too perfect not to be to Verin. But it's not like she said something shocking. She said exactly what she meant to say.
Yeah, it didn't pull words out of her mouth that she wasn't expecting or anything like that. But when she said it, that he would leave the room literally seconds before the attack. Yeah,
you're right. Ta'Veren works on a lot of different levels, both content and timing. And I mean, also how long it takes Rand to decide to go is very Ta'Veren-y, right? She could have said that and it could have taken him twice as long or half the time, but it took him exactly as long as it took. So that's Ta'Veren. And that has nothing to do with Cerelia and everything to do with Rand.
We get a little bit in his head here about why he abandoned his explanation for abandoning the Maidens. The Maidens had accepted his explanation about why he had gone without them in the first place, so any watchers would believe for as long as possible that he was still in Cairhien. But they had still demanded to know why he had not sent for them afterwards, and Rand had no answers. Because he's not willing to tell them that he doesn't want to put them in danger because he promised them he could. And we get a little bit of that in his head later when these 6 die, where he's like, a promise he had to make, but a promise that would, hurt him to keep.
Yeah, he has excuses that he can put them off with sometimes, but when they ask him, well, but what about the logical extension of that thought? And he's like, yeah, sidestep. It's very disrespectful that he will promise to their faces to do something and then spend all of his energy trying to get out of it. Like, they have forced you into this promise repeatedly. Fucking respect the promise that they're making you make. They are threatening to kill themselves if you don't make this promise. How dare you go back on it? Like, God.
And so in the middle of all this, in the middle of a thought, the attack happens. And it really is, it's almost barely a paragraph break, right? Like, I can see why I missed this on the first go around.
I can read you the entire event. A stone wall seemed to strike Min from behind. She thought she heard roaring, crashing. And then Rand was turning her over. She was lying on the floor, looking down at her with the first fear she remembered seeing in those morning blue eyes. It only faded when she sat up, coughing. The air was full of dust. And then she saw the corridor. One paragraph. That this entire massive fist of power smashes the palace, kills however many people, sends Rand on the run, sends shockwaves of terror throughout the politics of like 5 different nations, piques the Shan Chan's interest. One paragraph. RJ puts all of the actual boom into this moment that can't even be processed. It happens too fast to think. And we've said over and over again that this book is fog of war. This is a piece of that, right? There is no time to see, to react, to interact, to observe. It's just the whole part where she was flying through the air, the part where she was seeing stones flying, none of that has actually registered on her memory. It's all past. It's not there. It's just one paragraph.
And if it was from Rand's POV, there may have been like, hey, there's a buildup of power. What's that going on? Like and then before he had time to react to the buildup of power, an explosion happened. And then he like gets up and goes over to Min and rolls her over. And, like, all of that happens in his head. He is a little more cognizant of what's going on, as we see later. And I think one of the reasons this first half of this chapter was from Min's POV is so that this would be very abrupt and out of nowhere. There would be no way for her to sense someone channeling.
Yeah, totally. This is what it's like to be an unpowered, normal, mortal civilian going through this world full of magical demigods that can blow shit up with their minds. And again, this is part of why I love Min so much, is because she keeps up with this bullshit and she just keeps going and she stays with Rand and she's like, I can handle this, even though an event like this, she's completely just shrapnel flying through the air as this happens, you know? Rand has this very heartbreaking interaction with Morr, You know, one of the most iconic conversations. Can I trust you with your life? That's what I am trusting you with. Guard her with your life.
Which is, Min is his life, is what he's saying there. Min is my life. Guard her with yours.
If Min dies, there's no point. So protect her as you would protect me, because you are protecting me.
And then the irony at the end of the chapter when it turns out that Morr has gone insane and she ends up spending her time protecting him and convincing him not to destroy her. Rand kills him for that.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like Morr's brain breaks right here, right before the POV switch. Right at the end, Morr patted her on the arm with a dusty hand and gave her a boyish grin. Don't worry, Min. I'll take care of you.
There is an argument to be said that he goes insane in that moment, and that line is of a child's mind. Yeah.
I feel like the trauma of the explosion is what drives him over the edge and pushes him into that insanity. The line where he says, with your life, my Lord Dragon, does feel like adult Morr. So maybe it takes a few seconds for the full, like, house of cards to fall. I don't know, but I feel like this is the precipitating event that leads him to tip over the edge. And
my headcanon is it takes a little bit longer. I mean, there is a line where Rand is running around the palace for hours and hours looking for these men, right? This is not something where he goes out for 5 minutes and comes back. He is gone for quite a long time. I think it takes a little while for him to go insane, but yeah, maybe the aftershocks of the trauma. Maybe when he's coming back down, when his heart rate's coming back down. I don't know. I don't know if there needs to be a precipitating event, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It could just be it was creeping along, and this was the day it was going to happen for whatever reason. But yeah, just when it said boyish grin, I'm like, ooh, like boy, boy.
Yeah.
I don't know, because he is very young. He is literally like, what, 19 or something? I mean, he is boyish even before he becomes a child-minded person.
A child, yeah. And that's where it's not a childlike grin, it's a boyish grin, right?
But he gets described as very boy-like later. I don't know. I guess your headcanon can vary on that. But he goes insane somewhere between this moment and when Rand shows up. Long before Rand shows up, actually, because Min has been sitting there for hours managing him at that point, so... Maybe it flashes in and out. I don't know.
That's something I think you can headcanon either way. As either it happens right away or in a little
somewhere
while.
Over the course of the next, 4 hours in world time, it happens.
I just have a hard time she held him in check for 4 hours without, tearing down the big stones out of the wall. I want to feel like that was more like an hour or so of him, playing with the blocks. Sure. And for the first couple of hours, he was okay. Yeah.
And it really could have, flickered in and out. Right? 1 minute he's fine and the next minute he's acting kind of weird and this creeping realization. There's a whole horror movie vignette of her realizing over time that this is not an odd moment. He's actually falling off the edge.
Right. And maybe that boyish grin was just the beginning of that transition. Maybe it took an hour or two for that transition to happen as he lost his facilities.
Yeah, because it's a very ephemeral time that we have looking up and it's all off screen, but I think you can imagine quite the horrifying short story little experience for Min there.
Yeah, if we stayed in Min's POV, definitely. Yeah.
So with that, POV switch.
So back to Rand.
Yeah, this is a whole bunch of action stuff. This is a very comic book anime running around kind of sequence of events. There's a lot of running around for the end of a book.
There's also a lot of LTT going on here.
Oh, yes.
He is deep within his... he's using terminology from the Age of Legends. He's giving into the voice in his head. There's just a lot... he's using weaves that he doesn't know and hasn't learned.
Yeah,
but LTT does.
The line between them gets really thin because he's in a fight for his life and he's going to reach for anything, even accepting the insane part of himself.
So he goes around the corner before he embraces Saidin because, he's still doing the staggering thing. He's still seeing a face, which we know is Moradin's face. This is all from the Crossing of the Streams, right? So the Crossing of the Streams means he's sort of doing this merging thing. He's embracing Saidin twice. Well, however you want to talk about the doubling that's going on that causes this weakness whenever he embraces Saidin. He talks about the weaving that he felt, and he's thinking, oh, maybe it's Asmodean, maybe it's Demandred, maybe it's both of them, because he felt the weave come from two different directions, which means two male channelers. Now we know, and we very quickly find out that means it's Ashaman, multiple Ashaman attacking him, not necessarily Forsaken. But this is the danger, right? This is the two-edged sword of the Ashaman. He's trained up a bunch of male channelers, and before that, it was just him and the Forsaken he had to worry about. Now, it's all the male channelers that could be turned against him. Yes, they're hurt his weapon, but are they?
He kind of just set that ball rolling downhill and is now discovering what that means. And turns out it means he's got a bunch of toddlers with machine guns running around.
Right. Yeah, and also his lack of involvement in the Black Tower means that it's become corrupted, and like he's got, even though these are four of them who were with him in the battle against the Shan-Chan, right? And we should talk about why they attacked now.
Yeah, but I agree. He never trained them. He never developed a relationship with them. He has no unit cohesion with them, aside from the bonds forged in that latest campaign. Not in the Black Tower. He has no emotional connection to people in the Black Tower. He passed all of that off to Taim, who is a wannabe Forsaken. So it's a problem. But I was wondering about the timing of why now.
So my understanding, and this is mostly speculation, but, educated speculation, is Moradin wants to stop him cleansing the taint. The only time that Moradin says, and Moradin's in charge of everybody, he's gathering in his troops, Moradin's the one who's really calling the shots. And the only time that they're trying to kill Rand is in Book 3, The Dragon Reborn, right? Because Ishamael has gotten to the point where he's been killed twice, and he's like, fuck it, I want to take Rand down. And then he dies. And then he comes back, and the standing orders are not to kill Rand. The standing orders are let the Lord of Chaos rule, which is Rand and his chaos, right? We are not going to try and stop him. We're not going to try and kill him. Standing orders is let him gather power, let him make mistakes, let the chaos... Because he's going to go insane, right? Until Rand says, I have a plan to cleanse the taint. And Torval and Deshiva overhear that. Right. Torval being black, Deshiva being Forsaken. And so word of cleansing the taint gets back to Moradin. And Moradin says, we cannot risk that. Kill that motherfucker.
Better to kill him than to let him succeed in cleansing the source. And then they made the mistake of not counting for Nynaeve, and it was all fine.
With the cleansing, you mean?
They probably would have taken Rand down if he hadn't thought to have Nynaeve, but you can't take down Nynaeve. I mean, I know everyone else did all the fighting, but it's because Nynaeve was there.
Okay. Yeah.
Fine.
I mean, I think she was vital to the cleansing, and it wouldn't have happened without her, but...
It was Cadsuane, actually, was the MVP.
It was Cadsuane. Yeah. Really
you need Nynaeve and Cadsuane, because Nynaeve is what makes the cleansing possible, and Cadsuane is what makes Nynaeve surviving to get through the cleansing possible.
Right. And Rand.
Yes, and Rand, right. Because Nynaeve is not doing it alone. Like, she's...
No, because they are vulnerable, right? That's the whole point, is they need lots of time where they are vulnerable and need to be protected during the cleansing. And so you need a cadre of protectors.
So when the Golem got sent after Herod fell because he might be Asmodean and that might be upgrading Rand too much, really they should have been sending him after Cadsuane. Cadsuane was the person who was really the most... Cadsuane is a one-woman army defending Rand.
Yes.
Like, that's who the Golem would actually be effective at taking out. Like, Herod Fell was a philosopher. Cadsuane is literally an army.
So here's the question. Do you think the Golem could take out Cadsuane? Because she has a Foxhead medallion. Not a Foxhead medallion, but she has a medallion that does the same thing.
But he doesn't channel. The Golem doesn't channel.
Right.
So her channeling doesn't become able to touch him, and his abilities don't become unable to touch her unless some of her medallions are for dealing with hand-to-hand combat.
They are. There is one that is a physical protective shield, right? And much like the one we see Rand use in this battle. Codswain has a shield that will protect her from daggers and physical attack.
Would it protect her from a man slowly walking up to her and putting his hands around her neck and just crushing her throat?
I don't know. Maybe if she activated it, it's possible.
Like, how does she activate? Like, how does that ter'angreal work? Because people clearly are able to put their hand on her shoulder. What's to stop that hand from turning into an Elysian's throat being ripped out situation? I think that she would be the Aes Sedai who could actually give the golem a fight. I don't know if she would win because I don't know enough about her ter'angreal. But I think that she would actually take a few minutes to deal with. Even if she went down, it would be a fight that challenged the golem a little bit. But she doesn't have any way of hurting it. The most she could do, I think, would be to delay being killed.
Well, I do think one of her medallions would burn it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because one of her medallions negates power the same way the Foxhead medallion does.
She would not think to slap it onto a 10-foot pole and stick him with it.
No. Right. She needs the Verin luckiness of Matt's medallion falling out of his shirt.
Well, she's not a fighter. She's not a physical fighter. She's a mage.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, she is a green. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. She would probably go hand to hand.
I do agree. You're right. I mean, this is a huge hypothetical, right? We're going off on a major tangent here. But, like, yeah, I do think the golem is designed to take down someone like her.
Yes, I think that she would have enough defenses that the golem would have to... It would take a minute. And maybe that minute would be all she would need to sort out a thing to do. I mean, it is 6 turns. That's a long time.
Also, I can see her, like, flinging rocks at the golem.
Yeah, no, she would be very inventive in a fight. She'd be throwing chairs and soldiers' bodies and, like, all kinds of shit at the golem.
Because a lot of what the golem does with channelers is it walks up to them, threatens them, they channel at it, their channeling vanishes, and they go, oh shit, now, oh no, and they have that moment of shock, and then he kills them, right? Whereas I don't think Codswain would have that moment of shock. I think she'd immediately turn to, fine, I'm going to toss a rock.
Right, she'd try to kick him in the balls, gouge his eyes out, throw... Yeah, absolutely. She would not sit there like a goose and just wonder what the hell was going on. She would simply move on to the next line of defense. Because she's Codswain, who is not here now.
No.
Returning to the plot.
Most likely with Alanna, who's out of the palace.
Yep.
So Rand is wandering down the hallways, and he's using what he calls folding a light. And I really do think that is a Age of Legends term for Mask of Mirrors. You know, he's essentially giving himself an invisibility cloak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's just bending light around him because that's literally how light works. If you just bend it, then it looks like there's nothing there. That's the whole thing with black holes, you know?
Light's a wave. Well, I mean, yeah, the whole, like, we can go into black holes, but because this is the reason you see the ring around the black hole.
Yeah, I saw a really cool video about it recently because of the newest black hole picture. Veritrusim put out a video like day of the new picture coming out, and it's really good. He's got props and go watch Veritrusim's latest black hole video. It's very, very cool.
But the long and the short of it is, no matter what angle you look at a black hole, you always see a ring of light around it because of the way it bends light.
Yes. That is the important part here. Is that light is very, very flexible. Because it is a wave-ish. Yeah.
Except when it's a particle.
Yeah.
I'm leaning more and more towards it's always a wave.
Of particles.
No.
No, I don't have a strong opinion on it. It's not my field of expertise. I am just happy to see pretty pictures when people yell about how cool it is. Like, ooh, animations, that makes sense. Yay. But I would not be surprised if it is a wave. Just, it makes more intuitive sense, but I've heard that if it makes sense, then you're doing it wrong. So
that's pretty much what it boils down to with quantum physics. Here's the line I was referring to earlier. He had promised, but to lead them to fight, not to lead them to slaughter. A promise he had to make, a promise he had to keep. For that promise alone, he deserved to die. And that's his promise to the Maidens. And it's one of the promises he was trying to avoid by abandoning them. And that's why he didn't protest when they beat him up.
Yeah. And in this case where he doesn't step out to grab the maidens because he doesn't want to take them to slaughter, I think he is justified in doing that. In this case, it absolutely would be a slaughter to a woman. And that is a bad use of his fighters.
And I feel like we even get that line where it's like, we are the spear to fight your spears. You are the magic to fight magic. Right? Like, they know that the Aiel are not there to fight the one power. They're there to fight other fighters.
Yep, exactly. And then there's this line from Lews Therin: eagles and women can only be kept safe in cages, which is frustrating. But I have a replacement. I have a very cool replacement phrase that I got years and years ago, and it's very, very cool. Ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what they're built for. Just swap those out.
Which actually, but that's kind of not true, because ships in a harbor tend to get bashed up against the docks in a storm. They're actually safer out at the open sea.
Don't overthink it. You fucking white.
But no, I mean, the point is, that's what he's saying, though, is that, like, yes, you can put them in cages, but that's not doing anybody any good. You're taking away their freedom. You're taking away the point of life.
Yeah.
The point of the eagle can't fly, the woman can't live. Like, I do actually think it's a very good saying. Yeah,
for sure. It's eagles and people can only be kept safe in cages.
People, yes. As I say over and over again, whenever one of the characters says women, or men, replace it with people, and it usually makes just as much sense.
Yeah, because it is very true that, like, cages are incredibly bad, no matter how many, flaming arrows you may avoid while in a cage. And yeah, Rand goes running off down the hallway with Lews Therin cackling in his head, and he can almost feel the man's hands rubbing in anticipation. And it's like, Rand, that's you. You're getting real bloodlusty, Rand. Stop putting it on Lews Therin. That's you.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lews Therin is him.
I know.
Codswain shows up with no fewer than 6 Aes Sedai at her heels, and none that he recognized besides her. Don't know who any of them are, but that's her little, gaggle of Aes Sedai that she's gathered around her and had swear to her, and she clearly saw an explosion at the palace and came running in.
Lews Therin did not chuckle over Codswain.
No.
He chuckles over murderous Ashaman, but not over Codswain.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we've seen repeatedly, Lews Therin goes away around Codswain. He disappeared for a whole chunk of time because she showed up, right? There's a certain amount of, and people have speculated maybe it's one of her Terangriel, but I think it's just Rand being actually kind of scared of her.
Mm-hmm. No, she is Professor McGonagall. She is the stern older lady that you do not fuck with, because she has raised more grandchildren than you can comprehend. Hashtag trans lives matter, but also very much Maggie Smith's McGonagall, like that is Codswain.
So then we get what is almost a very humorous moment where Alil and Shalom, the Windfinder, are peeking out of a room together, and Rand's like, oh shit, I didn't want to be seen, so he ties them up and throws them under the bed. He doesn't consider why they're in the room together, because they're getting it on.
He assumes that they're plotting. He's like, oh, they're meeting behind back. Right. They're just like having an affair. Like, that's all that's happening.
Right. That's all that's going on, is they're having an affair. And later, Codswain finds them and holds it over their heads and uses their affair to get them to do what she wants.
Right, and Rand is even confused about why Codswain is still confused, because he's like, well, surely she found Ailil and Shallan and got the whole story, but they hold out for days under questioning because they don't want to admit to the fact that they were having an affair because it's super scandalous.
Right. And then when I forget what gets them to break, but eventually isn't she like torturing them or holding them hostage or something like that?
Verin is questioning them intensely. I forget exactly. I don't think anything dramatic breaks them. I think it's just over time they are being, basically tortured because the Aes Sedai think that there's a grand secret around Rand, and it turns out it's just Kyrian and prudishness and the Windfinder not wanting her marriage to get dissolved because she was cheating on her husband. Which is, fair. That's the Kyrian and prudishness is like, oh, shut up. But the whole, like, cheating on your husband is like, okay, yeah, no, that's generally bad politics to be, jeopardizing your legal standing while in a foreign country. That's a bad look.
Here's my only thing about the Windfinders is they live very long lives, right? 600 or so years. Their husbands do not. So it's very likely she's had multiple husbands over the course of her life, do you think?
No, because her sister is the correct age relative to her. So she hasn't experienced multiple lifetimes yet. In the future, that would be valid. But I mean, even then, like, it's cheating if there's no consent. Like, ethical non-monogamy seems like a thing that the sea folk would have. Sure.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. But it's interesting to me when I think about, like, the Windfinders having husbands. And, like, Nynaeve with Lan, right? Like, Nynaeve will outlive Lan by many, 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 many years.
Everyone always outlives Aragorn. That's how the story goes.
I don't think... Yeah, Nynaeve will never catch up to Lan in age. She'll always be... Lan will be this very old man, and Nynaeve will still look like she's 25.
Oh, yeah. She's not going to look like she's in her 40s until long after he's dead.
Right.
Unless, of course, she doesn't swear on the oath rod or unswears on the oath rod, in which case she may. Well, no, she wouldn't do that until... Yeah, no. Nope.
No.
She'll never...
Yep. She might look ageless the entire time they're married, right, if she swears on the oath rod. But she will not look old.
Nope. And then he will. And then he will look decrepit. Also, it's lucky for Shallan and Aileal that there isn't a Golem, because the next time someone gets tied up and left under a bed, they end up decapitated.
Yeah. Well, he's an Ebudar.
Yeah. It's just kind of like, man, you just left them completely helpless in a battle zone.
Yeah. There's a certain amount of risk inherent in that, right? Because what if someone besides Codswain had stumbled upon them?
Yeah. And Shallan's, her shield won't undo for a couple of days. Like, they're completely helpless until someone finds them, and it could be anyone. Or the building could collapse around them and they could be trapped and suffocate. It's just like, it's played as like a comedic little, he just had to like stuff them out of the way. And it's like, you just took away all their agency to escape a war zone.
Right.
Rude.
Yeah.
But he thinks that it's a threat to his life. So, fair.
Just past their rooms, he basically comes into a large balcony, right? So a balcony looking down onto
a big square chamber.
I assume it's one of those like transition hallways, like hallways come together. It's sort of like the lobby of a hotel.
Yeah, agreed. Similar picture in my head. Train station almost.
Right. And at the bottom you have Dashiva, Gedwyn, and Rochide basically conspiring.
Yeah, because Rand's been looking for his attackers. He sees them, turns out they're the attackers looking for him. Like, they're arguing, well, I don't think I felt him. Well, I don't think like...
But they probably did feel the shielding of Shallan.
Yes, that is probably what Gedwyn is saying. I'm telling you, I felt nothing. He's dead. Probably, yeah, that was him shielding Shallan, and Gedwyn just didn't notice, and so they're arguing about that. Rand shows up and is not sure if they are friend or foe until Dashiva's face changes.
Right. Because he doesn't know who attacked him. Yeah. And Shiva's the Forsaken, right?
Yep.
Yep.
He has made his move, and the mask is off.
Right.
But it's interesting. It's the only warning he had was the sudden snarl that contorted Dashiva's face. Like, Rand walks up, assuming at first that they're allies, that he's being attacked by the Forsaken, because the strength was that of a Forsaken. Dashiva's the one with the strength of a Forsaken because he's a Forsaken, which I also learned on Tar Valon After Dark that he's one of the strongest.
Dashiva? Yeah. It's funny, he's just not very effective because he's such a scientist.
Yeah. But he's actually one of the strongest in raw strength.
And we see that when Rand makes him pass through the gateway, like holding their full power. He says Dashiva was nearly as strong as him, only lesser by a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting that, Dashiva, a.k.a. Osengar, Agenor, died trying to wrestle power away from Rand, even though he's almost the same strength. But that's what burned him out, right? Like, Rand came very close to burning out at the Eye of the World.
Right, because that was his first time touching. He wasn't even anywhere at his full strength yet. Yeah.
So that's one of those things that, again, I think that's a bit of an Eye of the Worldism, because I do think that Rand should have burned out before Agenor.
Absolutely.
Even at this point, Agenor, Rand's at his full strength, and Agenor is only a fraction less strong than that. like, Rand wasn't at his full strength in Eye of the World.
No.
He should have burned out.
Agreed. I have the worldisms. We love to find them.
So at this point, him or Lewis Theron, one of the two of them, they're all basically the same person at this point, creates a barrier that would keep out anything short of balefire, including air to breathe.
Yeah, he makes himself a little hamster ball bubble so that he can be hit by this explosion and go bouncing down the floor and then is immediately suffocating because it's airtight.
And I'm like, would this not have been a good weave to have, like, any other time, all the time?
Again?
Right?
Ever?
Like, again? Ever? Like, this is such a useful weave. This is one of those ones where, we always talk about how much of a glass cannon channelers are, right? That they really can't take a hit. And a lot of times what they have to do is run and dodge. But, like, no, this one...
They could do this.
This could do this. Why is this such a... I mean, I guess you can't hold it, right?
It probably takes a lot of power also, so it's hard to multitask unless you're a super powered person.
And you probably can't channel out through it.
No,
so as long as it's up, so it's like, you can only throw it up when you see an attack coming. But he gets it up pretty fast, I mean, it's like, it would have helped with arrows. It would have helped with a lot of things, I feel like. It's one of those weaves that's like, okay, we know so much more is possible with the one power. And here's one of those situations where we see what it's capable of, even though it doesn't get used to nearly its potential.
It's just a flash of the Age of Legends. A memory of what used to be possible.
Yeah. So he responds with, threads of fire, those thin red wires that we see. I feel like that's what we see later Lewis Theron use against the Trollocs and the attack on the manor.
Yes. I think he learns that from Samael.
Oh,
Remember
okay.
he gets stabbed through the heel with a red filament? I think he learns that. I think that's actually
right.
Rand learning that. I don't think that's an LTT thing. I think Rand legitimately is like, ooh, that hurt. I should use it. And then, yes, I think he does use it again. He takes off that Myrddral's head. He just completely shatters it. And it's like the one time that a Myrddral dies completely before sunset because he just annihilates the brain so thoroughly.
Here's an interesting little... I think this is a mistake here. Thin red wires leaped from his left hand, fanning out, and then from his left sped balls of flame.
I highlighted that too.
Should it not be left and then right?
That would be my conclusion. Yes.
I thought he would have both hands up and have two different weaves from each hand.
And I read that over and over again. Like, was it coming from his left? Like, he's sending stuff out and then it's also coming at him. But yeah, it really seems more to me like that's a typo. I'm just going to correct the book. I've already defaced every single page. Like, why not? And it makes way more sense that he's dual wielding fire.
Yeah, right.
And then he gets up and runs because if he stands in one spot, he's just asking to be killed, which is,
like the glass cannon.
Yes, hit and run. That's how you do a battle like this.
Somewhere in the palace, man channeled enough power to make a gateway. I assume that, yes, they are actually making a gateway and fleeing because we never see them again. Well,
we do, but not in this battle.
Not in this battle. Yeah, sorry. We never see them in this battle. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they do decide, oh shit, Rand is way too fucking strong. No. Yeah. Run like the fucking chicken-hearted, livered snappers you are. I don't know. I'm not like Uno.
And then he sees Narishma and Flynn and immediately attacks them, even knowing it's Narishma and Flynn.
I didn't recognize you. Rand lied. I'm like, dude,
But he didn't know that the other Blackcoats were against him, right? Like, he didn't know which ones had attacked him. So he's seeing a black coat, he's attacking. He doesn't care who they are.
But he also let this black-coated servant go. He was able to tell that this guy was a servant. Sorry. I see what you're saying. Ashaman are different, but he literally lets a servant in a black coat go, and I feel like his trigger happiness should have killed that servant.
I did notice that. I was wondering if there was some reason why he was able to just let... I mean, I guess he knows the difference between a servant's coat and the Ashaman coat.
I'm shrugging.
Yeah. Or he's only attacking people he recognizes.
Oh, because Rand is not insane. He's not insane.
No. Lilligen says he can feel the ability to channel, but I think he's too far away from these people, and they have to be embracing the one power for him to sense that. That's not like women who can just sense the ability to channel.
Yeah. There's some really good LTT quotes I want to point out. LTT is thinking, I should have killed them all in the beginning, thinking about the Ashaman. So we've got that bleed over of LTT is expressing Rand's thoughts. That is not a thought that LTT, the real person, would have. Because LTT didn't make the Ashaman. right? Like Luz Therin
Right.
had like talking about Ilyena, absolutely a thing Luz Therin would say. But worrying about the Ashaman, that is Rand projecting into LTT. The other one is to destroy or be destroyed. When that's your choice, is there a difference? Just little echoes of Hamlet, just a pinch.
That to me feels very Way of the Leaf.
Yeah, also that.
Doing damage damages yourself.
That, yeah. I'd still rather it be references to the play, but, you know.
I don't know Hamlet as well, so.
I don't know it as well as I should, but you've got to be or not to be, that is the question. Comes from Hamlet, so.
Then he found pain.
Yeah, Rand searches for hours, and then when he goes to retrieve Min, he finds pain. And
then we switch back to Min's POV for this scene.
Yeah.
But this is holding the crown of Ilion on her lap. She watched Rand watching Fedwin.
Yeah.
And at this point, we get a description of Fedwin and what he's going through. And there's a few objects that survive the attack, mostly because I think they're power rot objects.
Or because they're plot armored projects.
Yeah, that too. But the large leather script beside her chair, that is the Choden Call.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Yes, I think it is because they're power rot. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the script that we see him carrying later when he goes and recruits Nynaeve.
Yes, those are the access keys, and also the crown and the scepter both survived, I think, because they are necessary symbols of office and have divine touch of cannot be damaged.
Kalendor is also in that pile.
Oh, yeah, that's logical. Obviously, because it's power rot. The sword that is not a sword is not going to break because you knocked it off the table.
Right.
A cat cannot take down Kalendor.
So, yeah, those are the important things that he got out of the rubble. He got, this is that like, in order for the rest of the series to make sense, he has to be able to get those things again.
Yeah, he has to go up to the room and pick out a few items of import, a few magical objects, his crown. And then he needs to go pick up the light of his life, which is Min. And he finds her guarding Morr and has to then deal with putting down a toddler with a machine gun. And Min wants to cry for Rand even more than for Fedwin. It's real sad.
Yeah. And Taim shows up as well during this process, clearly checking to see if Rand is alive.
Did my assassination team work or not?
Did it work? Yeah. Was I successful? No, damn it.
Min surreptitiously eases a knife in her coat sleeve. She's like, I'm going to cut a bitch right now.
Right. Well, and what's clear in this interaction to me is that Taim sent the 4 Ashaman, but he did not send Deshiva.
Right.
He did not know Deshiva was Forsaken. And that's why he is very startled when Rand says, add Deshiva to your list of deserters. Deshiva, Tam snarled, his eyes widening in surprise. And then he's like, I think he's going, oh, wait, I didn't know he was a Dark Friend.
Yep.
He was a mole. What's going on there? Like, is he a Forsaken?
Yeah, you can see the gears turning in Taim's head as he tries to keep up in front of Rand. And we only see some of the Ashaman that attacked Rand before, but now we get all the names. Gedwin, Rochaid, Torval, and Kisman. Kisman, I think we really haven't seen a lot on screen, certainly not in this chapter.
Because we only saw the 3 in the room when Rand attacked them. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, Deshiva's been hanging out under the radar and has suddenly revealed himself to be a bigger player than he thought. And Taim is like, oh shit, I didn't know, but oh dear.
Yeah, there was that surprise when Rand chose Deshiva. Taim was surprised when Rand chose Deshiva. I think that's just because Deshiva wasn't under his control. Not necessarily because he knew he was Forsaken or because he knew he was Black Ajah.
Yeah, I don't think that Taim ever knew that Deshiva was Forsaken. He dies Deshiva dies before Taim gets inducted into the ranks of the Forsaken, and he comes through Moradin. So I don't think he ever had an idea that he had a Forsaken with him.
Keith is claiming he definitely knew he was a Dark Friend.
Sure. But I think that Taim only spends time with people he knows are Dark Friends. I think that's just like a given with Taim.
Right.
And maybe Daemondra like dropped him off at the tower. We don't know how he arrived or how he signaled, but I don't think Taim has any idea that there's a Forsaken hanging out in his tower. And Rand says, "You come here holding Saidin," and they have a little staring contest, and then Taim backs down. And Taim offers to take away this one, and Rand says, "Fuck you, I will keep my humanity and kill this child myself." And it's real grim.
It's very grim. I understand why he does that. At the same time, it's rough. It's rough that he is the one who has to take down Fedwin Morr. This boy who came to him, one of the first who came to him in the tower, the one he trusted with Min. Like, there's so much there that's just, like, tragic. It's the boy he could have been, you know?
And Morr doesn't betray him. Morr goes insane and loses all faculties down to the age of, like, a 3-year-old. Like, it's not like self-defense. It's offensive, you know? It's necessary for the sake of the world. He can't put this kid in an insane asylum with guards to keep him safe. Like, and this is what Taim does, is put something in the wine. Like, it's the best option that you've got.
And in a lot of ways, by starting the Dark Tower, Rand killed him.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is the price he pays for having the Dark Tower. And this is the first time where Rand actually has to do it, right? Up to this point, it's been out of sight, out of mind. But this represents all the other casualties he's heard about from Taim, all the other people who've gone insane. You know, I forget what he said. It was like 1 in... I forget what the numbers were that have gone insane, but I think it was like 1 in 10 or something like that. It's not a small...
Yeah, that was a number in my head, too. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And it's only going to go up, is what he said from that point on.
Yeah, and Rand knew that when he started.
He did. And that's, in a lot of ways, I think one of the reasons why he is then pushed to cleanse the taint. He is confronted with this result of the taint driving Fedwin insane, and I think that might throw him in... You know, it's something he's been planning on doing, but maybe that's why it's the next thing he does.
Yeah, because he can't stand to have this be the cost. He has to do something. And now is as good a time as any if he's on the run.
Yep. And he's got the access keys. It's been proven to him through Codswain that he can't use Kalendor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he just learned that.
And so, you know, he's like, okay, I've got to, I have to finish off these Ashaman or else they're going to come at me during the cleansing. I think that's a little bit of a non sequitur for him. I think he should have just gone and cleansed. But it really is, I think, this whole, like, Fedwin Morr's death, I think, is what spurs him to attempt the cleansing.
Yeah, I agree with that. He knew he needed to do it. He was absolutely going to do it. But I agree that having to do this to Morr adds a personal level of urgency. And I also really like about this part where he credits Nynaeve for teaching him how to do this. That he's not just, you know, slitting his throat or stuffing some random herbs at him. He's like, no, I learned how to put down a rabid dog or put, you know, a terminal cancer patient out of their misery. Like, Nynaeve taught even the village boys enough about herbalism to be able to do this effectively.
I also think it's indicating he is thinking about going to Nynaeve to help him with the cleansing. Nynaeve is on his mind.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I hadn't thought of that, but it's like, hey, Nynaeve is critical to how I deal with this problem, both in terms of killing Morr and in terms of cleansing the taint. Nynaeve is the key to how I resolve the situation. I like that. And Taim goes, oh shit, you're a cold motherfucker. Which is like compliment, I guess. I
think Taim's not seeing the emotions that Rand is going through.
Sure, he's not seeing what Min is seeing.
Yeah, and Rand is doing that sort of self-flagellation, right? Whereas Taim is like, oh, you don't give a shit, you're just killing him. You're not going to turn him over to me because you're guilty. You're just going to go ahead and do it because that's the most, you know, Taim's the narcissist, so he sees it as the most practical thing to do.
Right, he's seeing it in that logical, pragmatic sort of thing, whereas Rand is seeing it as, how can I make this knife twist as hard as possible?
Exactly.
Also, he, I think, kind of want to protect Morr from Taim, and there's nothing that says Taim's going to be as gentle, even though ostensibly he would be. He'd literally take him home and give him some poison juice. But I think there may be an element of Rand doesn't want to trust this child to Taim, but I think it's more what you're saying.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, he's trusting all the other madmen for Taim's putting all the rest of them down. So,
but none of them are Fedwin Morr.
Yeah. This is one of the harder deaths. I think that we're lingering on it a little bit because it's a hard death.
It deserves to be lingered on. It's the innocent child being thrown into the meat grinder, and you know it's happening statistically, but this is being forced to look in one pair of eyes and watch it happen. And he deserved better. He threw himself into this for a good cause, and this is not great. On the other hand, a lot of the Ashaman suffer a lot more physically horrific deaths than gentle poison.
Right. Well, it's just, you're not yourself when you die, though. You've gone insane, and that's...
Yeah, the tragedy is actually before his meat suit lies down. Yeah, that's true.
And then the chapter ends with this analogy about hounds catching the wolf and the wolf returning on them and the wolf having to... I think this is kind of a crappy analogy.
Yeah, the point is Rand is going to bail and change his strategy. And he's going to start running around instead of acting like the king of Shit Mountain.
And this is really the last time that he abandons his kingdoms at this point, right? He goes and he becomes the beggar king, right? He becomes the fisher king at this point. He is running around in rags. He is no longer ruling countries. He is essentially a free agent from this point on.
He's incognito and calling in personal favors. He's hiding who he is. He's relying on connections he has, but not the visibility that he used to. He's outgrown being just a normal king. Now he has to be some ephemeral god emperor person. But he does go back to being emperor for a moment before he goes full Fisher King at Abu Dar. It's a thing.
Yeah, you're right.
But this is a big transition. He stops leaning on being a king as a way to affect events. Right.
Yeah, he's less of not the end of Emperor Rand, but essentially the end of that part of the story where he's no longer expanding territories. He's not taking over new countries. At this point, the only thing he really does is make an alliance with the Shan-Chan.
Now he just has phenomenal cosmic power.
Right.
He used to go cleanse the phenomenal cosmic power.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. But, basically he spends the entire next book on the run, and then he cleanses the taint, and then the book after that is basically overlapping.
Yep.
So it's not until really book 11 when we see him come back into his power.
And even then, it's a lot more touch and go than it has been up until now. It's been a very steady, all-encompassing part of his reality, and now it's going to become one of the things that he does occasionally when he's not running around and being, like you said, a free agent that has a retinue of like 5 people following him around.
And then he's Darth Rand for a while, and then it's Last Battle Rand.
Yeah. He loses a few body parts along the way, as one does.
Whatever.
But yeah, he tells Taim, don't come back here to talk to me because I am going to be all over the place. I don't want you to know where I am. Also, I don't know where I'm going to be, so just leave a voicemail. Mm.
And I think he actually spends a little bit of time laying a false trail in the beginning of the next book.
Yes, he does, because he wants to have no one know where he is going to do the cleansing until the moment he starts it. He knows that once he starts the cleansing, they're all going to find him, but he doesn't want anyone laying a trap first. But yeah, that's where we pick up with him next, I believe.
And next time we do a little bit of Perrin to take us out of this book, and we start the beginning of the Perrin Fail kidnapped storyline, just like we started the beginning of the Elayne becoming queen storyline at the end of this book. Both of those storylines get started, and because of the time folding that happens in Crossroads of Twilight, takes way too long to get resolved.
Yeah, and I think I'll just read us out with a tiny little bit of this because it's important. Even though his wolf analogy is dumb, what Min has to say is useful. No point in wasting time and no time to waste, Rand muttered. Kneeling in front of her, he took the crown and slipped it into the scrip with the other things. Min, I thought I was the whole pack of hounds, chasing down one wolf after another, but it seems I'm the wolf. Burn you, she breathed. Tangling both hands in his hair, she stared in his eyes. Now blue, now gray, a morning sky just at sunrise. And dry. You can cry, Rand al'Thor. You won't melt if you cry. I don't have time for tears either, Min, he said gently. Sometimes the hounds catch the wolf and wish they hadn't. Sometimes he turns on them, or waits in ambush. But first, the wolf has to run. When do we go? She asked him. She did not let go of his hair. She was never going to let go of him. Never. This is the key. You have to cry, Randolph Thor. You have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, none of this is going to work. This is why Min joins with Cadsuane and Sorlia.
He's got daddy issues.
Yeah. He's also got mommy issues. He's got uncle issues.
Yeah. But really, he hasn't seen Tam since Winter Night.
No, he doesn't know if Tam's alive. He doesn't know how Tam's been interacting with Perrin. He doesn't know.
I'm pretty sure he knows Tam's alive because of the whole they came to the tower. Well,
sure, but he doesn't know he doesn't know that Tam has been in danger in battle with Perrin like a dozen times at this point.
Right.
Like, he's not connected to what's happening with Tam. But yeah, if you don't figure out how to cry, you'll end up as a middle-aged white dude with no empathy. That's part of the problem, yeah. So join us next time for the stunning conclusion to Path of Daggers. This is the stunning conclusion. The last chapter is just setting us up for Perrin and Fael.
Totally. But this was sort of the big... There's two big events in this book, right? And this was one of them, right? The first one being the war.
Oh, there's the Bull of the Winds, the war, and the attack of the Sun Palace. I'd say there's 3 events.
Right. I always think of the Bull of the Winds as being the end of the previous book.
Yeah.
But even though it does take place first thing this one, but yeah, you're right. It is the beginning of this book.
And yeah, after we finish up with the last 2 chapters on our next recording next week, we will be doing Path of Tangents and moving on after that to a whole nother book.
We should definitely thank Patreons at the beginning of the next episode.
Yes, we should. We should.
For those of you who are here live, if you show up live to the next time, please remind us.
Yeah, we need to do Patreons because we've been getting a lot more Patreon activity. Presumably because we're doing the whole ad-free on Patreon thing for the episodes, though apparently, some places aren't getting the ads. I need to track that down, but...
That's okay.
No, it's not.
I mean, it's not great, but it's okay.
Yeah, no, it's... We're still working out how to make all the things happen, but we do definitely have more Patreon activity to note at the beginning of the next chapter, for sure.
For sure. So a huge thank you to everybody out there. A big thanks to the large crowd that showed up today. It was really nice to have a big crowd for this really exciting chapter. And as always, thank you to the Patreons out there. You guys are great. I know we put ads in our podcasts, but the real money is still the Patreon money. The ads are a nice bonus, but they really do pale in comparison to the donations that Patreon brings in. We would not be able to do this without the Patreon donations.
Absolutely. My presence at WatCon is 100% being subsidized by you lovely people who are Patreons. That is the entire reason I am able to go to WatCon. So thank you from the bottom of our nerdy little hearts.
Any real world updates on your end?
I actually got a tiny bit of gardening done.
Woo!
Which is I'm bad at the garden stuffs. I'm not good at that.
Are you vegetables, flowers, trees? What are you working on?
Vegetables and herbs. We're really trying to establish the long-term perennial herbaceous things, rosemary, thyme, also self-seeding stuff like cilantro. We have a very hardy cilantro plant that survived from college in a bucket and is quite good at self-seeding now. But my strawberries were getting munched on by the horses, and I weed. I'm bad at weeding. I'm good at killing plants. I'm good at harvest. I am good at processing the fruits of everyone else's labors. I am very bad at getting those labors started in the first place.
Your cilantro is basically fuck it in a bucket.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I am a hands-off gardener. Brandon's much better about gardening, but he has a lot less free time. So, but in this last weekend, it was really nice weather, and we did actually get some good weeding done. He got the lawnmower put back together so it could immediately break in a new way. You know, we did outdoor spring things. It was very pleasant. That's about it. Spring is just continuing to be springy and pleasant and remarkably cloudy and rainy for May. It started out as a dry spring, but it's actually been quite wet for the majority of May, which has been pleasant to see.
I heard we had like the wettest spring in 82 years, or maybe it was the wettest winter or something like that.
I think it's the spring. Yeah, because the winter was really dry.
Winter was really dry.
I'm not sure about the statistic you're saying, but that sounds right. It's been very, very wet, and it's good. I mean, it's the good, soft, soaking, water replenishing, snowpack replenishing. Like, this is good rain. This has been a wonderful respite from the bullshit of climate change. It happens now and then. That's the thing with the curves that are going radically up and down, is they do actually have to pass through the middle in order to get to the extremes. There are times in the middle, and I'm going to enjoy them when they happen.
Yeah, me and Timber and Never spent a fair amount of time in dog parks this weekend, just being outside, sitting on blankets, drinking a cider or two or a beer or two, and Timber was, humping dogs and
living his best dog life.
Living his best dog life, absolutely. Eating cat shit. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
That's
he's
where
loving
it's at.
Yeah. But it was a nice weekend to take just sort of an outdoor break instead of being inside with lights and stuff like that.
Yeah,
in front of a computer. Yeah.
Exactly. Same. Sounds like we were on the same wavelength. Just like the sun, but filtered through clouds so I don't get too burned.
And we talked about this earlier, but for recording, work is going great. I'm 5 weeks in, still doing a ton of training, a ton of learning. It's very complicated. This week, I'm switching from a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to a temporary noon to midnight 12-hour shift, so I can train with different people to vary up my training a little bit. But yeah, it's going really well, and I'm really enjoying working on these machines that make computer chips. Like, they're cool machines, they do a lot of cool stuff, and I'm stretching my brain for the first time in what feels like years. The stretching hurts a little bit, like stretching always does. There's definitely some pain moments where I get frustrated and I get angry because I'm not learning fast enough, or I can't keep the information in my head because there's a lot of it. And because, man, it's weird working 12-hour shifts. I'll tell you, it's a lot. It's a long day. So just trying to adjust to that and everything like that. So, but yeah, I feel I'm having a day every once in a while where I'm feeling comfortable. So that's a good sign. Good.
I'm glad you haven't flared out from the stress at this point. That's a good sign.
Oh yeah, but this is the kind of job where it'll probably be, most jobs take 6 months to really feel comfortable, and this one's probably more like a year before I'm really gonna have my feet underneath me.
It's a marathon, not a sprint kind of learning curve. That's a big ask, but you've read 14 books however many times. I'm sure you can absorb how to operate these fancy pants machines eventually.
The reading comprehension has come in handy because I can sit down and read a manual, and that's something that not everybody can do. But I'm really happy to be doing this, and I got my first full paycheck and went, ooh, that's more money than I thought. That's good. Like,
don't forget the taxes.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is you never know exactly what the taxes are going to be till you actually get paid.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh yeah, I'm making a living for what I feel like, not just enough to get by, but actually enough to like maybe save some money.
That's fabulous. And speaking of not saving money, Seth and I may have made more arrangements for going to WatCon
yes.
earlier today. I
believe you bought a plane ticket.
That may be much more set in stone than it was when I woke up this morning. So for everyone who was wondering if I'm going to be at WatCon or if I'm going to pull out at the last minute, I spent a bunch of money on making that more final. And
I reserved a hotel room, and for the two of us.
Yeah, we're being forced to leave our respective orders in Aes Sedai at home because travel is really expensive.
Really expensive.
But we are managing to pool our resources enough to get our podcasting asses there. So that's going to happen almost definitely.
Almost definitely, yeah. So, and I took my time off of work and everything, so.
Oh, yeah, I should probably ask my boss if I can have some time off work. Hey, Seth, can I have some time off work to go to WatCon?
Let me ask my boss if you can. Hey, Radia, can you take time off?
Yeah, I think I'll approve that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. HR says yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's stupid expensive, but one way and another, we have various resources we were able to pile into some kind of amalgamated Frankenstein monster of a budget, and it's going to work.
Mm-hmm. And it really is just plane tickets have gotten absurdly expensive. That's really what's almost priced us out.
Yep, it's absolutely the plane tickets. The room block, very affordable. Very affordable.
Right. Yeah.
For sure. Very grateful for that being a thing. But yeah, I guess we'll probably try to record something while we're there because it's a con.
We really should.
Yeah. We'll yell into a mic there. We'll try to capture some atmosphere for the podcast.
And if nothing else, just record an episode in the same space, which is always nice.
Yeah. That'll be fun. Also be stressful as hell. Took me so much energy just to work up the energy to make a budget, to realize how extremely unaffordable it was, to freak out, to then find a bunch of resources, pool it together, pull back how much I'm going to spend. Like, that was a lot of energy. And that was just the planning. I want teleporters.
The nice thing about WatCon is we're not running it. And it really will be easy to just show up and go to what we want and talk to the people and hang out and just have a good time.
That's true. The concept of not running the con that I'm at. Yeah, you're right. I have not. I have not gone to a con where I was not in some capacity in charge of it. I mean, the first WatCon, or the first spoiler con, technically, but everyone since then. So yeah, I don't know. You said saving money, and I'm like, speaking of what happened to my savings today. Fucking plane tickets.
Yeah, they're. Whew. Why is a modern miracle of technology so expensive? Oh, right. Yeah. Gas. It's mostly gas prices, I think, at this point.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, honestly, flying should be expensive because it's a terrible polluter that a lot of people use way too frivolously because it's so affordable.
Right.
You know, it's like any fuel product or whatever. Like, I think that we should be paying for the true cost of gas at a lot more points of sale. So in many ways, this is correct, but also it's correct for the wrong reasons. So It's frustrating.
No, because I understand, like, gas prices have gone up and they've been almost absurdly cheap in the U.S. for a long time. You compare it to any European country, gas prices are way more expensive. The flip side of that is we've built a society that depends on cheap gas. And when gas prices go up, the most vulnerable people suffer.
We backed ourselves into a corner and then shot ourselves in the foot, and it sucks because the only solution is an insane amount of investment in infrastructure overnight, which is not gonna happen. But yeah, no, it's the cost of our gas because of subsidies is frustrating. It frustrates me about as much as corn subsidies. I know about it enough equally about them to be equally frustrated.
Right. Well, you don't want corn syrup in everything you eat?
I put in real, honest-to-God time avoiding corn syrup. The amount of time we spend in the store reading the labels on shit to make sure that the new product that we're going to get doesn't have corn syrup in it. Actually, it's not that often at this point. We've honed in everything that we're buying, so we don't have to really review it. But for a while there, it was like...
It takes effort. I had a good friend who this is a while ago in Virginia, who was allergic to corn and corn products. And yeah, we had to put in a lot of effort when we ate together, because that's when I learned that corn syrup was in everything. Because he'd be like, nope, can't have that. And I'd be like, why? It doesn't have any corn in it.
It's ketchup. Like, nope, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's right. It's tomatoes. And it's like, nope, corn syrup. Everything's sweetened with it.
Yeah, you have to buy hippie brands that are expensive, and you still have to be careful. And it becomes easier to just make literally everything yourself when you try to eliminate that. It's like, honestly, I just make my own fucking ketchup. Like, yeah, it's a thing.
Or yeah, a soy allergy.
Oh
is
my
also
god,
very difficult.
soy allergies are rough. Yeah, or like one of my grandma can't do nightshades. So tomatoes and potatoes are out for her. It's like, what's the point? What's even the point?
So this friend who had a corn allergy also had a nightshade allergy.
Oh, God,
so
no.
It was those two. It made it very, very difficult to eat with him. He basically had to cook everything himself. Like, we could not go out anywhere.
Yeah, God, nightshade allergies are just so unfair. Because, I mean, that's potatoes and tomatoes.
And then, God forbid, you try and throw on a food preference like vegetarianism or, if a wheat allergy or just avoiding wheat because you don't want to.
Right.
There's like...
Yeah, if you want to avoid dairy.
Right. Most people who really should avoid dairy who are adults who, Yeah,
for sure. For sure. It's really rough when you have a highly restrictive diet to then have preferences on top of that.
But yes.
Yeah, I am very glad that as far as I can tell, I don't have any significant allergies to food. It's makes me very happy.
It's great to see such a good crowd today. I'm like, man, we need to go back to using the @everyone, I think.
I would say the data suggests that would be productive. Yeah. Yeah.
I understand the need not to bother everyone all the time.
I guess I can use the @accepted also because it technically only is applicable to people who have the accepted status.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, that is how we give people access, is we give them they have the accepted status. So I should be using @accepted, not @everyone.
Right. But that would still ping everybody who can actually listen to it.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think it's, I'm still, but I can still use the event thing instead of the channel next live recording. We used to use next live recording and the @everyone, so I can use the @accepted.
Oh yeah, I think the @accepted on top of but continue to put in the next recording.
I like having the schedule there. It's helpful for me.
We also have our spreadsheet that we mostly keep updated,
which is
for
good.
each other.
The power of Google Drive is a miracle thing.
Oh yeah, this podcast definitely runs partially on Google Drive.
We owe a lot to Google for making this possible. But I mean, Google Drive got me through college also. Like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I
sold my soul to Google a long time ago, and it has been well worth the price. I have gotten the services I have paid for.
I'm not sure if the internet's gotten worse or if Google search has gotten worse, though. I rarely find what I want from a Google search these days. I do. Where I feel like I used to be able to Google anything, and it would just be the first result. Yeah. Now it's I have to do some real searching. No,
that's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah.
My media literacy skills and reflexes have gotten better as the internet's gotten worse. So it's always been about an equal amount of effort because but no, you're right. I was just trying to check the weather the other day, and I just thought if I checked, if I just threw in weather prediction, then weather.gov would be the first website that would show up. No, it's 3/4 of the way down the first page of Google. Why do I have to remember to go to weather.gov? Why can't I just throw the word weather into Google and have weather.gov be the first thing? Why is that so much to ask?
Right. Ugh. And I do think Lillian's making a point that the and not are not as effective as they used to be.
I never got good at Boolean search. I've just gotten good at using the AI and learning how to string a half coherent sentence together and then sort through the results. Because
I mean, don't get me wrong, I still use it for spell checking everything because Google is the only effective way to take my random ass guesses at spelling a word, and they've had enough people type bad spellings of words into Google, they actually know what I'm trying to say because enough other people have made that mistake already.
That and currency and measurement exchanges. That's the other thing that Google's good for.
I will admit I've started using Alexa for a lot of that because Alexa, oftentimes I need unit changes in the kitchen while I'm cooking, and so because I still can't remember how many pints in a gallon.
Right.
I don't care. Imperial system doesn't make sense. It never will make sense. It's just a random set of numbers that work together. I mean, quarts I get, right? That's a quarter of a gallon.
Simple.
But that's about the only thing that's simple.
Yeah, no, living in the non-metric world is dumb. That's the thing.
How many teaspoons in a cup that comes up with a surprising frequency?
Yeah, Brandon and I both have separately have a weird superstitious heebie-jeebie feeling around technology you talk to. I don't know why. I was raised on so much Star Trek. You think I would be really excited to talk to my house, but for some reason it gives me the heebie-jeebies, and then Brandon just does not like it at all. So we've never had a thing you can talk to in the house. Neither of us want it at all. So, but my brother's obsessed with it. It's ridiculous.
I blame Travis. He gave me one and never talks to it a fair amount. And so then I sort of learn how to use it. But I use it for timers and unit conversion is about all I ever use Alexa for.
I mean, and that's super legit. You should have a household gadget that can just yell the correct conversion at you.
And setting a timer, especially when you're cooking, it's when my hands are dirty.
Yeah, for sure.
That's being able to do that. I do wish that I had a better way to get recipes up. A lot of times what I end up doing is looking up a recipe and then writing it on a whiteboard before I start, because the recipes on my phone, the phone goes off. I don't have a good way to display them. And so I find just writing the ingredients and measurements on a board really quick make things a lot faster in the long run.
Yeah, same. I tend to write my recipes down on a piece of paper, which I then put into a folder, which I will never find again. Even though I have lots of them, and I will find different folders when I go to look for the... Anyway, file management is not my strong suit. Because I never did much of the historical drama tragedies with Shakespeare. I really only ever studied the comedies. So Much Ado About Nothing, Midsummer Night's Dream, Merchant of Venice. Midsummer Night's Dream is fun, honestly. But yeah, I've never actually seen Macbeth or Hamlet, for that matter. I have seen Romeo and Juliet. I was in a really good drama department in high school, sent someone to Juilliard with every graduating class, good. And they did Romeo and Juliet, post-apocalypse style aesthetic. So they had a beat up car. Nice. They did a raffle where people got to hit an old car with a baseball bat, and then they used it as a prop for the play. But it was a really good production of Romeo and Juliet. Just peak high school drama club talent, really, really talented young people.
I will say, when I lived in Virginia, I lived in Waynesboro, Virginia. There is almost nothing in Waynesboro, Virginia, except a entirely accurate reproduction of the Globe Theater.
No.
It's the only real one in I believe, North America, certainly in America, that's accurate. And their theme was always, we do it with the lights on. Because they do the lights up like you would in a actual... Back in the day in the Globe Theater, they didn't have artificial lighting. So it was either the sun was out or they had, candles going. So there was no stage lighting.
Right.
Because it was this very accurate reproduction, there was lots of traveling Shakespearean play troops that would come through and do accurate plays in that theater. So I've seen almost all of these Shakespeare plays live by very good Shakespearean actors. It was very, very
God, I'm so envious.
And my girlfriend at the time, Catherine, her aunt was actually there on vacation doing a tour and was doing that thing where she was on stage, looking up, and backed off the stage, fell, and broke her back on the front row of seats.
Oh dear.
And had to be in traction and in the hospital, eventually made a recovery, but serious accident that happened on that stage.
Very period.
Yeah. Very period. So I remember that she really hurt herself at that stage. But we were in the middle of nowhere and there was very little culture, and so I went up to that theater a lot. That was one of our me and my girlfriend at the time's favorite activities to do. So I saw a lot of Shakespearean plays.
Oh, that's delightful.
Yeah, it was very, very good. So and I learned, because I did the standard studying of Shakespeare in high school and absolutely did not enjoy it. It was okay, but I was oh my God, why am I listening to 15-year-olds read Shakespeare poorly, in class? That's just not how it's meant to be enjoyed. Read silently to yourself or by somebody who doesn't understand what's going on. And so then seeing, up to that point, I'd seen some Kenneth Branagh productions. He did some of the more Hollywood versions of Shakespeare that were pretty good. And that was my best exposure to it. And then I went and saw Shakespeare in theater. And that's a whole different fucking experience. When the actors understand the lines that they're saying and can deliver them, not just verbally, but also physically.
They can make it so you get that was a dirty joke, even if the words were gibberish, because literally all the slang has been destroyed by 400 years of history. But they can still make you realize that was a dirty joke. Yeah. I have seen Shakespeare done by decent school kids, but also like Shakespeare in the Park done by enthusiasts or done by college student drama things. And I've also seen a couple of plays in Ashland, Oregon, where they have, the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So I have seen very, very well done Shakespeare. I have done bad Shakespeare. I definitely, our 7th grade play was
same.
It's Merchant of Venice with the double sets of twins, I think.
That's one I haven't actually seen. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that one. I was one of the noble twins. That was fun. I was one of the 2 people in my class that enjoyed acting. Everyone else hated it. I was that kid.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?